Sometimes, evil doesn't burst through the front door. It walks in quietly, invisible, and waits until you're the last one left. My name is Alex, and I used to think night shifts were the safest place for someone who hated noise, drama, and people. Just you, the soft buzz of fluorescent lights, and the hum of a fridge that always seemed one step away from breaking down. I worked at a convenience store on the edge of Whitmore, a place that didn't even show up on Google Maps until last year. The kind of store where you'd go for cigarettes, gum, and maybe a midnight beer. It was dead quiet most nights, boring, predictable. Except for one, that night, everything changed. It was 2:57 a.m. My shift was about to end in an hour. We stocked the coolers, swept the aisles, and was sitting behind the counter with my chin resting on my palm, half asleep. The only noise was the dull whine of the freezer and the occasional car zooming past on the highway. Then, the automatic door slid open. No footsteps, no chime, no customer. I leaned forward, confused. The small TV monitors showing the security feed blinked, glitched, then froze. When they came back, I saw it, a figure standing still in aisle 4. I hadn't seen anyone walk in. The figure didn't move. It didn't look at the shelves. It just stood there, a black silhouette, tall, motionless, and wrong. I blinked. Looked again, it was gone. I checked the monitor. Nothing. I stood up, peeking over the counter, scanning the aisles. Silence. Then the store phone rang. It was the old landline, the one that never rang unless something serious happened. My hand hesitated above the receiver. Then I picked it up. Whitmore store, Alex speaking. Nothing, just heavy breathing on the other end. Deep, raspy, wet. I swallowed. Hello. Click. The call ended. I stood there for a second, phone still in hand, heart beginning to pound against my ribs. I told myself it was just a prank. Some drunk idiot, maybe. But then the lights flickered once, twice, then all at once, every light in the store blinked out, except the red emergency glow behind me. And that's when I heard it. Tap, 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 footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Inside the store, I wasn't alone anymore. Darkness hides things, but sometimes it reveals them too, especially when they want you to notice them. I froze. The kind of freeze that doesn't come from fear, but from something deeper, instinct, primal, like an animal sensing it's being hunted. The emergency lights painted everything in a dull, blood-red hue. Shelves looked twisted. Shadows stretched, unnaturally long, like they were reaching for something, or someone. The tapping continued. Not hurried, just steady. Calm, almost. Patient. I moved around the counter slowly, trying not to make a sound. My hand brushed against the baseball bat we kept under the till, just in case. I gripped it tight. Hello, I called out. No answer. I tiptoed down the aisle. Chips and candy wrappers rustled in the faint breeze coming from the broken air conditioning. Nothing moved. Then I heard a sound behind me, a low scrape, like something dragging across tile. I spun around, nothing, but then the freezer door, far in the back, slowly creaked open, just a crack. I took a step closer, heart pounding in my ears. The freezer was pitch black inside. I couldn't see a damn thing. Another step. The door suddenly slammed shut with a loud bang. I jumped, nearly dropping the bat. Then I heard it again, the store phone, ringing dot. Again, dot. I ran back to the counter, snatched it off the hook. Stop messing around, I snapped. This time, a voice answered, whispering, "Don't move." My breath caught in my throat. "Who is this?" No reply. Just two more words. "It sees you." Click. The line went dead again. I stared at the receiver for a long second, trying to make sense of what just happened. Then the monitors blinked again. Camera 3 lit up. Aisle 2, a tall figure, back turned to the camera. It was staring up at the ceiling, not moving. Then its head twisted, without its body turning, and it looked directly at the camera, straight into the lens. Straight at me. My stomach dropped. The screen went black. Then a single word appeared on the monitor, written in white, glitchy letters across every feed. "Run." But I couldn't move. Not yet, because right then the bell above the front door chimed and footsteps came in. But the door never opened. Doors are supposed to keep danger out. But what do you do when they lock you in with it? The door hadn't opened, yet I heard footsteps, heavy, steady, and wet, as if something barefoot had stepped into the store. I backed away from the counter, gripping the bat tighter, trying to convince myself I was imagining it all. That maybe I had fallen asleep and was stuck in some nightmare. But the smell told me it was real. The air changed, thickened, filled with the metallic stench of rust and something else. Something rotting. Squish, tap, squish, tap. The footsteps moved past the snack aisle, toward the freezer again. I ducked behind the counter, crawling on my knees, and reached up to mute the security monitor sound. I didn't want to hear my own breathing echoing through the store. I wanted silence, but the cameras were still flickering. Camera 5, right above the register, showed the front of the store. A man was standing outside. He was facing the glass door, his hands by his sides, not moving. Pale face, wearing a janitor's uniform. One I didn't recognize. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. There was a chain round his neck, and it was tight, too tight. His mouth was open in a silent scream, eyes bulging, skin blue, and he wasn't alive. I blinked, and the image vanished. Camera 5 returned to static. A deep hum began to build in the room, not like an engine or a light. This was deeper, vibrating in my bones. It felt like something was building, coming closer. That's when I made the mistake of trying the door. I ran to it, tried pushing, then pulling. I even banged on it. Nothing. The door wouldn't budge. And then I saw it. My reflection in the glass wasn't moving like me. It blinked slower, its head tilted the wrong way. And behind its reflection, there was someone standing in the store. Someone right behind me. I spun around. The store was empty. But when I turned back, the reflection was gone. Some aisles hold chips and candy. Others hold things that should have stayed buried. I stumbled backward from the door, gasping for air, heart thundering like it wanted out of my chest. Whatever was happening, it wasn't in my head anymore. This place had changed. It wanted me here. I turned to run toward the back room. Maybe hide, maybe find another exit. But something made me stop. It was the sound of humming, low, broken, like a scratched record playing a tune from decades ago. I followed it, against every instinct screaming in my brain. The humming was coming from aisle 7, the cleaning supplies aisle. As I stepped into it, the lights above flickered violently, casting sharp shadows across the shelves. My foot hit something soft. I looked down. A mop, soaked, but not with water there, was a dark red smear across the tiles leading further down the aisle. At the far end stood a man. His back was to me, dressed in a dirty janitor's uniform, hunched forward, head twitching slightly with every note he hummed. "Sir," I managed to say, barely a whisper. He stopped humming. His head twitched again. And then, without moving his feet, his entire body twisted around, like a puppet spun on strings. His face, no, it wasn't right. His mouth was stitched shut. Thick black thread crisscrossed over cracked, dry lips. His eyes were wide and watery, begging, screaming without sound. Then he raised his hand, slow, shaking, and pointed. Behind me, I turned slowly. Nothing. But when I looked back, he was gone, vanished. Only the bloody mop remained. I ran down the aisle, past the fridge, through the back door, and into the break room. I slammed the door shut and turned the lock. But I knew something was already in here. Because in the mirror above the sink, a word was written in fog. "Stay. You think the truth will set you free." But some truths were buried for a reason. Stood in the break room, chest heaving, the door locked behind me. The mirror above the sink had fogged again. The word "stay" was still there, but now another one appeared beneath it, slowly, one shaky letter at a time, with "us." I wiped the mirror with my sleeve, but the words remained like they were, etched into the glass itself. I backed away and scanned the room. Rusted lockers, a flickering ceiling light, stale coffee cups stacked by the microwave, and then the scratching, a faint, rhythmic scrape, like fingernails against drywall. It was coming from behind the lockers. I moved slowly, pushing one aside. Dust flew up, revealing cracked tiles and a patch of wall that looked different, like it had been patched over. I felt around and noticed a gap in the plaster. I pulled at it, and the wall gave way. Behind it was a narrow cavity. Inside, wrapped in moldy plastic, was a file. I sat on the bench and opened it. Yellowed papers, stained with time and something darker. Blood, maybe. The top sheet read, "Employee Incident Report, May 3rd, 1998. Subject, Thomas Miller, Incident. Employee failed to clock out. Security footage lost. Blood discovered in aisle 4. No body found. Recommendation, close case, reassign shift. Do not escalate." Another file. Employee termination, July 2004. Subject Marlene Ears. Claim reported seeing a figure watching her from freezer glass. Later found unconscious in stockroom. Transferred to psychiatric care. Never returned. There were 6 more reports, all describing nearly the same thing: strange sightings, voices, vanishing people. Every incident buried, every voice silenced, and all of them happened during the night shift. My hands were shaking. My stomach turned. I knew one of the old employees, Todd, who quit years ago without a word. He was always quiet. But now I understood the look in his eyes when I asked him why he left. It wasn't burnout, it was fear suddenly. The lights cut out again. The door handle behind me started to rattle. Slow at first, then violently. I grabbed the file and backed into the corner. The room went silent. Then dash bang. The door burst open, but no one walked in. Only the mop from aisle 7 slid in slowly across the floor, leaving a trail of fresh blood. Behind it, they say, fear crawls up your spine. But what if it's already above you, looking down, waiting for you to look up? I stared at the blood trail. The mop stopped just short of my foot, like it was placed there. A message, a threat. My breathing was shallow. The kind you do when your body knows that making a sound might mean the difference between survival and disappearing like the others in the file. Then I heard it again, the humming, but this time, it wasn't coming from an aisle. It was above me. The ceiling, creaking, light taps. Something crawling across the metal tiles. I stepped away from the center of the break room, never taking my eyes off the ceiling vent. Tap, dot, drag. Tap, dot. Something was up there. No someone. Then a piece of ceiling tile cracked and fell to the floor. Dust swirled from the hole above. Long fingers wrapped around the edge, pale, knotted, with nails that were blackened and split. I couldn't breathe. A face lowered just enough to peek through. Wide, hollow eyes. Skin tight like it had dried over bone. No lips, just teeth. To many of them, it grinned. Then it whispered, "You're already part of the store." I screamed and ran, bursting through the break room door, file still in hand. The store was darker than before. Emergency lights were gone. Only flickers of cold blue light blinked randomly from the freezers and cash register. I didn't stop running until I reached the front door again. I banged against it, screamed for help, but the street outside wasn't the same anymore. It looked wrong, like an old photograph, faded still to still. No cars, no wind, just an empty, colorless road stretching endlessly. Then I turned around and saw the monitors. All 6 feeds were now showing the same image. Me from different angles, standing in the store, staring at the screen. And behind me, in each feed, stood something different. A tall man in a suit, a woman without eyes, a crawling thing with no mouth. Every single one of them watching me, waiting. I ran to the office, slammed the door, and locked it. Inside, I ripped open the drawers, hoping for keys, something, anything. Instead, I found a tape recorder. Old, dusty, already playing. And on it, a voice I recognized, my own, saying, "I never left. I never made it out. If you're hearing this, it's already too late." Help finally arrived. But when the devil owns the building, even the police knock in vain. The sound of my own voice on the recorder froze my blood. It wasn't just a warning. It was a death sentence. I never left. I threw the recorder across the room, but it kept playing. No matter where I went in the office, I could still hear it whispering through the air. And then, the sound I'd been desperate for since this began. Sirens, faint but real. Drawing closer, red and blue lights blinked through the dusty front window. Tires screeched. Doors slammed. Voices shouted. I sprinted toward the glass, heart pounding with a mix of fear and desperate hope. 3 officers stepped out, 2 men and a woman. Flashlights drawn, weapons ready. One shouted something I couldn't hear, pointing at the building. I waved my arms, screaming, pounding on the door. But they couldn't see me. They were looking through the store, like I wasn't even there. Then one of the officers, the woman, stepped forward and placed her hand on the glass. She whispered something I couldn't hear, and slowly she tilted her head and looked directly into my eyes. That's when her face changed. Her skin rippled, her eyes sank inward, and her mouth opened into a silent scream, not out of fear, but as if she recognized me. The other 2 officers turned, but their eyes were empty. Hollowed on, they walked into the store. Without opening the door, I backed away. Lights flickered again. The air turned cold. I turned to run and found myself in aisle 1. But I hadn't moved. I blinked, confused. I turned back to where the door had been gone. Gone only more shelves, more aisles. The store had changed, rearranged itself, trapped me deeper. I could still hear the sirens outside, but they sounded slower now, like a broken tape winding down, and somewhere inside the shelves, something was laughing. Not loud, not manic, just a slow, wet chuckle. And then a voice from the speaker system crackled to life. It wasn't a PA announcement. It was a whisper, looping over and over again. Shift never ends. Shift never ends. Shift never ends. The worst prisons don't have bars. They have memories you didn't make, and days that never end. I ran through aisles that weren't where they should be, past shelves that seemed to stretch taller and twist like they were bending. Toward me, nothing made sense anymore. The store had folded into itself, like a maze built by something that didn't know how space or time were supposed to work. I ended up in the candy aisle again, even though I knew I hadn't turned that way, and that's when I saw something that made me stop cold. Me standing at the other end of the aisle, same clothes, same blood on the sleeve, same look of terror on his face. He looked at me and whispered, "Run. This time, maybe you'll get out." Before I could move, he vanished into thin air. I stumbled backwards, heart racing. What the hell was happening to me? That's when the store lights blinked out completely and came back on with a blinding white glow. I was behind the counter. Again, Dot's clock said, 2:57 a.m., exactly where the night began. The mop was gone. No blood, no distorted monitors, no file in the wall. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The bell above the door chimed, and in walked an old man with a newspaper. He smiled, nodded, and walked to the fridge like nothing was wrong. Another customer entered, a teenager, then another. The store was full, bright, alive. I turned in circles, panicked. Was I imagining everything? Then I looked at the mirror near the back of the store. Everyone who entered had no reflection, only me. Only I was real. The rest were shadows. I stumbled toward the exit. This time, the door opened with ease. Cool night air hit my face. The street was silent. I stepped outside, walked to my car. It was parked just where I left it. Keys in ignition. Engine started. Was it over? Had I survived? Then I looked in the rear view mirror and saw someone sitting in my back seat, smiling and whispering my name. The deeper you look into your own reflection, the more it starts looking back with a mind of its own. I slammed on the brakes. The car skidded to a stop just outside the store. My chest was heaving, my vision blurred, but I didn't dare look in the rearview mirror again. Whoever, whatever that was, it had said my name like it owned me. Alex. I reached behind with a trembling hand. Empty. Back seat, empty. I turned. The car was clean, normal. But my reflection in the mirror, it didn't match me. I was breathing hard. The reflection wasn't. I moved my hand. The reflection didn't. And then, it smiled. But I wasn't smiling. I shoved the mirror upward and floored the gas. The car sped through Whitmore's silent streets, past closed gas stations, darkened houses, blinking traffic lights, all untouched by time. My GPS didn't load. The time on my phone, 2:57 a.m. Still, I checked again. The second hand didn't move. Nothing moved. That's when I noticed something in the passenger seat. A receipt from Whitmore Convenience, dated tonight. Time stamped 2:57 a.m. Only one item, Soul. 1-1, no refunds. I swerved and pulled over. No, 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 no. I got out of the car, fell to my knees on the grass, trying to breathe. Then headlights appeared in the distance. Another car, it pulled up beside me. A police cruiser, an officer stepped out. Flashlight in hand. "Sir," he asked, "you okay?" I ran to him, grabbed his shoulders. "You have to help me. The store. There's something in there. I saw things. People. I think I'm losing my mind." He looked at me slowly, calm to calm, and then said, "Alex, we spoke already." My blood turned to ice. "What?" He stepped aside, motioning to his dashcam screen. It showed me standing calmly, talking to him. Just 10 minutes ago, I watched, in horror, as the other me laughed, joked, said everything was fine, that Alex climbed into his car, drove off, but I never did that. That wasn't me. I turned back toward the road and saw it, my own car, already parked, already waiting. Inside it, me, staring at me, motionless, expressionless. Like a doll, the officer behind me put a hand on my shoulder. "Shift never ends," he whispered. And when I turned to face him again, he had no eyes. The worst thing you can see in the dark isn't a monster. It's yourself, smiling back at you with someone else's memories. I stepped back from the officer with the eyeless face, stumbling into the road. He didn't move, just stood there, head slightly tilted, like he was listening to something no one else could hear. And behind me, my own car, engine off, windows fogged. But through the glass, I could see me, sitting still, eyes wide open, pale and smiling. I approached, slowly. Every part of my mind told me to run, to scream, to do anything but move closer. But I had to know. I reached the driver's side, looked in. He blinked. My double blinked. Then the window rolled down. I leaned closer. He whispered, "You took too long." And then he vanished. Gone. Not ran, not dissolved. Just poof, like a bad signal cut from reality. The car door opened. On its own, I looked around, empty street. No sounds, not even the wind. Like the world had paused for me to make a decision. I sat down in the driver's seat. The moment I did, the stereo turned on. A voice came through my voice. "Again, if you're hearing this, it means I made it further this time. But not far enough. The store doesn't let go. It pretends, repeats, replays. I've met myself 3 times now. Every version of me dies closer to the exit. You have to break the loop, or become it." The audio, glitched, dot, and then, static, a new voice, low, familiar, inhuman. "Return to your register, Alex." I sat frozen. Then the GPS activated on its own, destination. Whitmore Convenience, ETA, 2:57 a.m. I gripped the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles went white. The engine started itself, and slowly, without my foot on the pedal, the car began to turn around, taking me back to where it all began, where it always begins. You can try to run from a nightmare, but what if the nightmare waits behind the counter with your name on it? The car drove itself. I swear I didn't touch the wheel. The streets bent the wrong way. Curves where there had never been curves before. Signs written in languages I couldn't read, houses without windows. Street lamps blinking like they were breathing. I sat frozen in the driver's seat. The stereo dead silent now. Just the engine humming and tires slicing through the endless black road. My phone buzzed. I grabbed it. No signal, no service, no apps. Only one thing on the screen. Clock back in. And beneath it, At time, 2:57 a.m. Still, always 2:57. Then the store appeared again, like it had been rebuilt. Only, this time, it looked older. Boards on the windows, dust over the glass, a flickering red neon sign that simply read, "Open." I didn't want to get out, but my door unlocked by itself and opened. Something in me whispered, "If you don't go in now, it'll come out here." So I stepped out. The store was quiet, too quiet. No wind, no traffic. Even the bugs had stopped buzzing. The world held its breath. I approached the glass door. Inside, I could already see it, the register, waiting. A single receipt fluttered on the counter, even though no one touched it. I pushed the door open. Ding dot, the bell rang the exact same way it had the first time tonight. But the moment I stepped in, the door slammed shut behind me and locked. The lights buzzed to life, flickering down the aisles in perfect sequence, like something had prepared for me. And there, behind the register, a figure, not me, not a shadow, something else. It was wearing my uniform. It had no face, just a mass of skin, where features should have been. But it stood in the same pose I did every night, elbows on counter. Bored, I didn't speak, and yet it turned its head, slowly, and whispered from a mouth it didn't have, "Clock in, Alex. You're late." I shook my head. No, I quit. I'm not doing this anymore. But then came the sound from all around me. Receipts printing, all at once. Hundreds, they poured from every register, every checkout, curling across the floor like paper vines. Each one had my name, and each one said, "Returned to shift." I backed up, tripping over the edge of an aisle, falling hard onto my side. As I scrambled to my feet, I saw the security screens flicker on. They showed the store, but every screen had a different version of me, all dressed the same, all inside the store, each in a different timeline. One was mopping blood. One was screaming at nothing. One was calmly working the register. One was hanging by a noose in the stockroom. And one looked directly at the camera, at me, and smiled. The lights went out again. Total darkness, and then the whispers started. From the aisles, from the freezer, from the ceiling, all of them saying the same thing. "Welcome back. You can forget what happened in a haunted place, but the haunted place never forgets you." The whispers grew louder, but not from one direction. They were everywhere. Aisle one hissed, "You were warned." The freezer moaned, "You didn't leave." And from the ceiling above, something creaked and said softly, "Clock in." I ran. My legs felt heavy, like I was wading through invisible tar, but I forced myself forward, past the frozen goods, down the back hall, to the stockroom. The door opened on its own, pitch black inside, but not empty. I stepped in and pulled the string for the dangling bulb. It flickered weakly to life, casting a dim yellow glow over rusted shelves and broken boxes, and then I saw them photos, hundreds of old Polaroids, pinned across every wall. Each one had a name scrawled in red ink with a date. Thomas Miller, -1998. Marlene Ayers, -2004. Todd Harris, 2013. Lina Moore, -2017. Ethan J. Minos, 2021. And then Alex, my breath caught. My photo, same uniform, same expression. But in the photo, I was smiling calmly, the same way the reflection had smiled. As I reached for the photo, something behind the shelves moved. A low dragging noise, then a sharp click. I froze. The bulb above me went dimmer and dimmer until it buzzed out entirely. Total darkness, then a breath, right behind my ear, "You never left." I turned, nothing there, but the shelf behind me now had one new photo, pinned up, one that hadn't been there seconds ago. It showed me, lying on the floor, throat slit, eyes open, mouth sewn shut. The caption beneath, "Next shift, pending." I stumbled backward, tripping over a box. The entire room shook. The shelves groaned. Dust poured from the ceiling tiles. And then I saw it. A hatch in the floor, half covered by a torn rug. A heavy metal door with rusted hinges, and a faint symbol burned into the steel. A symbol I'd seen before, on the file folder, on the ceiling, tiles, even on my name tag, the store's marked. Whatever was beneath it, I knew it wasn't storage. It was where they took you. When your shift really ended, you thought the store was the prison. Then you haven't looked beneath it, where the forgotten shifts rot. I knelt in front of the trap. It didn't feel like metal. It felt alive, warm to the touch, pulsing slightly beneath my fingertips, like something was breathing just below. The symbol etched into it glowed faintly red, like dying embers. I should have walked away. I should have run. But this wasn't about survival anymore. It was about truth. My hand shook as I gripped the rusted handle. "SCREEEEEEEK." The hatch groaned open. A stairwell led down. Stone steps soaked in shadows. The air that rose from below wasn't cold. It was damp, like the inside of a grave dot. And there was noise, not whispers. Now dot voices, crying, screaming, pleading. Dozens of them, all calling the same word, Alex. Alex, Alex. They knew my name because they were me. I stepped down slowly, 1 step, 2, 10, 20. I don't remember how many. Time didn't move the same way anymore. My phone still said 2:57 a.m. The staircase opened into a massive, underground chamber, pitch black, except for faint red lights lining the walls at the center. A clock. Ancient, not electric, not mechanical, made of flesh. Pulsing the minute hand was a bone. The second hand was a needle, and it was ticking, backward. Standing before it were people, or there used to be people, uniforms like mine. Some wore name tags, some didn't. Their faces were blank, eyes wide and glassy, mouths stitched shut or melted together. One of them stepped forward. His badge read Thomas-1998. He raised a hand, pointed at the clock, then pointed at me. Then he spoke without opening his mouth. The words burned directly into my head. "When your shift began, you didn't read the fine print. Time is currency. You punched in, now you pay." I turned and ran, but the staircase behind me had vanished. Only stone walls now, and the ticking tick, 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 tick. Then the lights in the chamber turned red, bright and pulsing. The clock at the center let out a scream, not a chime. A full, human, tortured scream, and from the shadows, something began to crawl toward me. Slow, gigantic. A form I couldn't fully see. Long arms, dozens of fingers. A face that kept changing every time I blinked. It whispered as it came closer. "Time to clock out, Alex." Some jobs take your time. This one takes your soul, piece by piece, and you don't even remember when you agreed to it. The thing slithering toward me from the shadows wasn't walking, it was dragging itself with elongated arms. its many fingers tapping across the stone like insects skittering across glass, and its face, it didn't stay the same. Every time I blinked, it shifted. Sometimes it was mine, bloodied and pale. Sometimes it was Todd from 10 years ago. Sometimes it was a version of me I'd never seen before. Older, hollow-eyed, stitched at the mouth. Its body pulsed with the sound of the ticking flesh clock behind it. Tick, tick, tick. I backed away until my foot hit the base of the grotesque structure in the center. The clock had no numbers, only names dot around the face of the clock. Names were carved where numbers should have been. Thomas at 12 o'clock, Marlene at 3, Todd at 6, Ethan at 9, and between 11 and 12, a space, blank, waiting. My name would go there. I reached into my pocket. Somehow, unbelievably, I still had the file from earlier. The incident reports, the sealed records. I pulled them out and flipped through frantically, and then I saw it, tucked inside the pages. A receipt, like the one I'd found in my car. Only this one said, shift incomplete, worker in debt, and scribbled on the back in red pen, find the old key, exit before 3 o'clock, or stay forever. But it was still 2:57 a.m. always. The monster was closer now, dragging its bulk across the floor with a sound like wet rope over concrete. And then a whisper echoed through the chamber. You left it behind. Left what behind? And then I remembered the register drawer when my shift started. I never closed it. I dropped the receipt, turned, and ran toward the far wall, screaming at the stone, hoping, praying that something would open. And then the wall split. A seam appeared, and a narrow hallway opened, lined with fluorescent lights, blinking in perfect sequence like a heartbeat guiding me out. I didn't hesitate. I ran into the hall, not looking back, not listening to the sound of the creature wailing behind me. As I ran, the lights flickered faster. The air grew colder, and the hallway stretched like the building was trying to stop me. But then the sound, a register bell. Ding, I knew that sound. I reached the end of the hallway, kicked open the rusted door, and there it was, the front. Counter dot the store, but not how I left it. Empty, silent, covered in a thin layer of ash. Everything was grey, like time had aged the store by 1,000 years. I moved to the counter. There it was, the drawer. Still open, inside, something waited. Not money, a single silver key, and under it my name tag, burned. I grabbed both and turned, and found every aisle blocked off with caution tape, except one, aisle 13. But our store had only 12 aisles. I swallowed hard and stepped toward it. If a place wasn't meant to exist, maybe it doesn't follow the rules of space, time, or sanity. I stared at the hanging sign, AISLE 13, white letters on a black board. It swayed slightly in air that didn't move. Everything in me screamed not to go in. But this wasn't about instinct anymore. It was about inevitability. There was only one open path, and so I stepped in. Aisle 13 was unlike anything else in the store. The shelves weren't metal. They were wooden, rotted, gnarled like tree roots. Products sat on them, but they didn't belong to this world. Jars filled with teeth, cans without labels, oozing black liquid, boxes that buzzed when you looked at them, and then I saw them, people standing perfectly still along the aisle edges, all wearing the same uniform, all frozen in place, their eyes wide, skin pale, mouths open as if caught mid-scream, like statues. One of them, a woman with half her name tag burned off, twitched as I passed her. Her eyes followed me. I whispered, "Are you still alive?" Her lips moved slowly. Shift never ends. And then she screamed. The shelves began to collapse inward. The aisle groaned like a building caving in. I ran, but aisle 13 didn't end. No matter how far I ran, I stayed in it, until I turned around and saw the register behind me again. I was back at the start, and the woman now directly in front of me, but her eyes were all black now. No pupils, just a deep void that pulled at me like a whirlpool. She opened her mouth, and 1,000 tiny voices screamed out of it at once. "Punch out, punch out, punch out." I dropped the silver key. It hit the floor, and the entire aisle froze. Time stopped. Sound vanished. And the key hovered above the floor, spinning, glowing, and then it flew backward, into the wall behind the register, right into the clock. The flash clock, now, mounted on the back wall of the real store. The moment the key slid into it, the hands moved. For the first time, 2:57, 2:58, 2:59. I ran. I sprinted toward the exit. The store shook violently. Shelves fell. Screams poured from every corner. The aisles twisted and curled like snakes. And at the center of it all, the shadow from beneath the floor, the crawling god of this nightmare, rose from behind the freezers. Its many faces all screamed in sync. It reached toward me, but I slammed through the front door, out into open night. I fell hard on the pavement outside. Everything was dead silent. Then, beep. My time card machine buzzed behind me. The clock on the store blinked. 3 o'clock AMU escaped the store. But the store didn't stay behind. It came out with you. I lay there on the cold pavement, staring up at the sky. It looked normal, dark, cloudy, motionless stars overhead, but it didn't feel real. The air was too still. The silence, too perfect. Then the store door behind me slammed shut. Lights inside flickered and died. The sign that cursed red neon, "Open," buzzed for a final time and went black. And just like that, the store was gone. Literally, I turned and stared. Where the building had stood seconds ago, there was nothing. Just an empty lot. Weeds. Dirt. No foundation. No walls. Like it had never existed. Like it had never been allowed to exist. I stumbled back, my legs barely holding me. I walked to the curb, sat down, and tried to breathe. My phone buzzed. Service restored. The time, 3 a.m. Finally, I checked my texts, missed calls, my messages. There were none, as if I'd been deleted from the last. 7 hours then, headlights in the distance. A police cruiser, real this time. Not twisted. Not hollow. It pulled over. A younger officer stepped out. "Sir," he asked, concerned. "Are you all right? You look messed up." I stared at him. "The store," I muttered. "Whitmore Convenience. It was right here." He looked confused. "There's never been a store here. This lot's been empty for decades. Condemned land, toxic ground, town won't touch it." I looked at him with hollow eyes. I worked a night shift there. He didn't laugh, he didn't smirk. He just knelt beside me, serious now. "You're the second person this month to say that." My blood ran cold. "Who was the first?" He pulled something from his cruiser. A photo, black and white. A man, 50s maybe, wearing the same uniform I wore, same name tag, Alex R. I whispered. "That's me," he said. "This photo was taken in 1975. I stared at the image. Same face, same eyes, same scar on the brow. The photo slipped from my fingers and floated to the ground. Then the officer said, something I'll never forget. We don't know how he vanished, or why people keep saying they worked the night shift, but they all say the same thing." He leaned in closer. "They all punch in at 2:57, and they all try to punch out before 3 o'clock. I didn't answer. I just stared forward as behind him, the clouds above began to move, and for just a moment, I saw the faint glow of a neon red open sign in the sky. They say nightmares end when you wake up. But what if the nightmare was the only real thing, and the waking world is just another aisle in the store? The officer left me with a warning, and a coffee I didn't drink. The photo he'd shown me, the one of me from 1975, lay curled in the dirt. I didn't touch it again. I went home in a daze, drove back through Whitmore's sleeping streets. At every red light, I checked. The mirrors, nothing but I felt it. That presence, like someone was in the back seat again, watching, smiling, waiting. When I got to my apartment, everything looked untouched. Dishes still in the sink, curtains still half closed, the TV still frozen on some late-night infomercial. But something was off. The clock on the microwave said 2:57 a.m. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, checked my phone 2:57 a.m. Again, I yanked the battery out, pulled the plug on the microwave. Still, the wall clock ticked 2:57 and stuck. Then I saw it. On my table, my time card, the one I never clocked out of, still stamped with tonight's date, still open, still active, and beside it, my name tag. Only now, it didn't say Alex, it said, assigned floor manager. Level below and beneath it, effective immediately, return before 3 o'clock. I dropped it, backed away. The lights in my apartment flickered, then went out in the reflection of the dark TV screen. I saw them again. People, uniforms, pale, hollow, dash-eyed, crowded behind me in the reflection, but not in the room. I spun around, nothing, but on the floor a new receipt had appeared. You left the door open. We followed you out. I opened my front door to run and saw aisle 1 from the store, laid out in my hallway. Same shelves, same lights, and somewhere down it, I heard the bell ding. I ran down the hallway, no choice, trying to find the exit. The walls shifted. My photos turned to price tags. My couch morphed into a freezer. My bathroom mirror turned into a security screen, and it showed me back at the register, smiling behind me. The creature again, the crawling god of time, reaching, stretching. My voice came from the mirror. You made it out, but only part of you. We kept the rest. I smashed the mirror, screamed suddenly. I was back in my kitchen, the door gone, the world normal, the clock now ticking. 3:01 a.m. I collapsed to the floor. It was over, I thought. For weeks nothing happened. I went back to life, or tried to, but then people in town started vanishing. All employees, all night shift workers. No signs of struggle, no evidence, just gone. Only a receipt left behind in every case. Punch out failed, transfer initiated. And one night, while checking my own reflection before bed, I saw something dot in my eye. A tiny red flicker, a glowing dot, open, the end.